Welcome back, my friends, and now we are in our welcome screen again. And what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to go here to create new, right? And you know that we're going to get this window, and we already talked about this window. I'm not going to use any of these presets because I want you to pay attention to this section where it says preset details, right? So in this case, this preset has nothing, and it says just preset details. I can give it a name, and let's say that I want to create my own square object, for example. So I can call it like that, square. And now I'm gonna use, let's say, this for an Instagram kind of post. So I will go like 1080 by 1080. Now this is the resolution for Instagram regular post, right? And you can see that I'm working with pixels. You can see that I am specifying the number of pixels that I want for the width, for the height, and then I have the px, which represents pixels. Now this is important because if you're going to be working with pixels, you need to set up this right here. If you're going to be working for, let's say, if you're going to print something, if you're going to be working for, you're going to create a poster or something like that, a big banner. So you want to work with inches or centimeters, probably with points. It all depends on your project. But here you have the area where you can change this. Now this is important because, again, let's say that right now I'm going to be working with pixels, right? So if I work with pixels, I'm going to get this type of resolution. And when I send pixels to print in a rasterized image, that resolution is going to be really important, because if I try to print a huge poster in with an image of just 1080 by 1080 pixels, it's going to look awful, right? So I need to have a lot of space. I need to have a lot of resolution. And right now we are not going to be exporting this. We are just learning about the interface and what we have in here. But once we get to the area of exporting our files, you're going to see that that's going to have a really kind of a huge impact if we rasterize our images and all these kind of things. So for now, don't worry. Now, but yes, if you want to be working with let's say centimeters, you go and change that in here. And if you're going to be working with inches, you just go and change that in here. Now you can see that I can go again and change that to pixels, and they keep this kind of reference. All right, that's another thing that I want you to see. So 1080 pixels by 1080 pixels, if I go and change that to centimeters, you can see that it's giving me 38.1 centimeters. So if you're going to be printing something in a piece of paper that has this kind of dimension, like 38 centimeters, you're going to get a nice kind of object. But if you are going to print this in a huge banner, you can see that the resolution of 38 centimeters, if you're going to print something like that in a banner of 2 meters or 3 meters, you're going to get in trouble with the resolution. So that's the kind of thing that you have to keep in mind. So if you know that you're going to be printing this object in a 2 meter by 1 meter kind of object, then go and change that to 100 centimeters in here or 200 centimeters, and then go and say that you want 100 centimeters in this one. And that's what you're going to get. Now, what happens in here is that if you go back to pixels, now you can see that the dimensions are now completely different, right? So that's a good thing here inside Illustrator. It will tell you that you have the kind of conversion, because a lot of people, for example, in my case, I love to work with pixels. I work with pixels all the time. Now I set up all my things with pixels. Even if I'm going to be working with print, sometimes they send you this information in points or in picas or in inches. It doesn't really matter. If they send it to you with centimeters, like we just see like that, then I can just come and say, you know what, I will open that project and I can change it to wherever I want, and that's something that you can do as well. So don't worry right now. Just keep in mind that right now that you are starting, you know why you have this, and you have access to come and change them if you want to, right? So I'm going to go back here to pixels. I want to use pixels, and I want to change this to 1080 by 1080. Okay, that's my setup. Now you can change the orientation as well, and in this case we have a square, a perfect square kind of preset that we are going to create. And you can see that I have the orientation, so I can say, I want it to be a portrait, or I want it to be kind of horizontal kind of orientation, you have this option. In this case, it's not giving me the option because I have a square, so I just get that option. But if we change this resolution, let's say just to 500, for example, just to get something new, you can see that it's giving us that resolution, and I can now click and change the values in here in between. So if I click in here, I will get my width higher than my height, and if I click in here, I will switch these values. But for now, like I said, we want a square thing, so I'm gonna get 1080 by 1080, and now I can't change anything in here. Now we have what we call artboards. Now artboards are the actual areas that we can use in our document. We will talk about that later. So let's say that we want to use just one piece of paper, all right, inside Illustrator. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to use only one piece of paper. So that's what my artboard kind of means. But we will talk about them later. Now we have a bleed, and we can specify these options if you want to get a bleed, because remember, you're gonna be working with an object for printing purposes. So you're probably gonna be printing your document, and so you can use these values to create a bleeding kind of thing. Now, when we work with pixels, you rarely are gonna come and use these. For example, if you go to film video, you're going to see that you have some presets, and then like in Photoshop, for example, you have some margins that allow you to see where your text should be and all these protection guides. Now in this case, I don't need any of this. You can create a bleed for the top, for the bottom, for the left, for the right. You can just click on this chain, and if I set that to 10 now, for example, I can set, and everything is going to go to that value. So just a simple stuff, but I want you to know that. Now we have here another set that it says advanced options. Now here we have color mode. Now color mode is important because this is going to specify what type of color space you want to use, or color mode. And in this case, if you're going to be working on your computer, you're going to be sending this to video, to a video game, to a cell phone, or things like that, you're going to be using RGB values. That's what we want to use, this type of color. Now, if you're going to be using this document for printing, you want to make sure that you want to change that to CMYK color, all right? Because that is different. Now you can see that I'm getting a warning in here. And that warning is because, the actual size that we're using, the preset and the screen and all this is kind of not matching what probably Illustrator is kind of thinking. So he's like, the choosing color mode is different from the color space, and all these kind of things defined by the document profile. So in this case, I'm not going to be working with printing, so I'm just going to go back to RGB values, and that's what happens. And you can see how Illustrator is intelligent enough to let you know, hey, what are you doing? Come on. Now let's go to the next one. Here you have the raster effects. Now raster effects, remember that I talked to you about rasterized images. So that's kind of the thing here. What's going to happen with these effects, and what's the resolution that we are going to be using with our rasterized effects. So you can see that I have a resolution screen of 72 paints per inch, and that's the value that I'm using. But you can go and make that a higher value. You can go up to 300, for example, or medium, or just screen. Now screen is 72 points per inch, and that's the type of resolution that we want to use. Now if you're going to be printing something really big, so I recommend you to go higher in here, but for a screen, because we're going to be using cell phones and everything is kind of matched by the resolution of the screen. In this case, let's say 4K, 2K, or HD, whatever. So we're going to be using is based on a screen. So we want 72 points per inch. So that's basically what is kind of telling us in here. Now we have another option here called preview mode, and the preview mode we have set that to default, but we can change that to pixel, and we can change it to overprint. Now I'm going to leave that by default, because that has to do just with how you're going to be able to, how you see your previews, and we will talk about that later on. Now there's another option here that says more settings, and if you click on the more settings, now you can see that I'm going to get for all of you that know Illustrator for a long time, you can see that I get the kind of old version of this window, and where what is actually happening is that we are getting kind of the same thing. The name, the profile, you can see that it's a custom profile that I am creating, number of artboards, everything that we discussed in here, spacing, if I want, the size is custom because I am deciding the size of this, the width, the height, all the things that we specified, they are here, the color mode, the screen, default, and that's it. So you can actually just come in here and try to change some of the things here. You can use some templates. But basically, that's what we want. Now you can just click on cancel, or you can create the document. If you click on cancel, you still have the opportunity to come in here and create your document by clicking on the create button. And now you're gonna be able to see your object. That's it for now, and I will see you in our next class. Illustrator is showing us now our document, and it's called Square. You can see it in here. And we have our values of color. You can see the size of the document. That's perfect. And we will start using it in our next class. Thank you very much. Bye-bye for now. Take care.